The desert wind carried with it the whispers of forgotten wars, wars fought not only with weapons, but with loyalty, betrayal, and unshakable brotherhood. Ibrahim Traore, now the leader of a nation, once walked as a soldier in foreign lands, his heart molded in the furnace of Gaddafi's war machine. Among those who marched beside him was a man no less than a brother, his best man, the shadow that never left his side, the shield that took blows meant for him. They had fought together under the scorching sun of Libya, where bullets cut the air and loyalty was more valuable than gold. But destiny, in its cruel script, would test that brotherhood on a night soaked in fire and blood. It began with an ambush. The city lay half asleep, its narrow alleys winding like veins through the old stone walls. In one such alley, a convoy rolled silently, headlights dimmed, carrying Ibrahim and his men. The night was quiet, almost deceptive, until the silence broke with a thunderclap of gunfire. Shadows emerged from every corner, faceless men with rifles blazing, their bullets sparking against metal, slicing through the air like venomous wasps. The best man of Ibrahim, scarred by years of war yet unshaken, was the first to react. He leaped out, firing back, covering the convoy with fearless precision. His movements were poetry in chaos, the kind of rhythm only men born in battle could dance to. Ibrahim shouted commands, his voice rising above the gunfire, pulling his men into formation. But then it happened. One bullet, swift and merciless, tore through the night and struck the chest of the man who had never once faltered. He staggered, the strength in his body suddenly betraying him, his weapon clattering to the ground. "Ibrahim," he gasped, blood seeping between his fingers as he pressed his wound. Time slowed. For Ibrahim, the world shrank to that single moment, to the sight of his comrade's body folding into the dust. It wasn't just a soldier falling. It was the collapse of every memory, every bond forged in Libya's fire, every oath whispered in the silence of camps where dreams of freedom had been nurtured. Without hesitation, Ibrahim broke formation. He charged through bullets, through the chaos, reaching his fallen brother. He crouched beside him, shielding him with his own body, his rifle spitting back at the shadows who tried to advance. "Stay with me. Don't you dare close your eyes," Ibrahim roared, his voice trembling with both rage and desperation. The man tried to smile through the blood. "I told you, I'd never leave your side." Not even now, but his body was heavy, the breath shallow. Ibrahim pulled him up, slinging him across his shoulders in the old soldier's carry. Bullets grazed him, stones shattered, and fire painted the night. But Ibrahim moved like a force of nature. He would not let death steal his brother, not while he still breathed. His men covered him, their rifles laying down a curtain of fire, but Ibrahim was the storm at the center, carrying both a man and a legacy on his back. The alleyways twisted like a maze, and the attackers were relentless. Every turn brought more gunfire, more shadows, but Ibrahim's will was unbreakable. He remembered Libya, the days when this very man had dragged him out of fire once, saving his life when all seemed lost. He remembered the nights under the desert sky, where they spoke of loyalty, of building a new dawn for their people, of never betraying one another. Now it was his turn to repay that debt written in blood. They reached a narrow street where an old building stood, abandoned yet solid. Ibrahim burst through the door, his men following, barricading the entrance with broken furniture. Inside, the air was heavy with dust, the walls scarred with age. He laid his brother gently on the ground, tearing cloth from his own uniform to press against the wound. Blood soaked through instantly. His hands shook, but his eyes burned with fire. "You're not dying here. Not in this forgotten street. Not tonight," Ibrahim whispered, his forehead pressing against his brother's. The man's eyes fluttered, pain etching lines deeper into his face. "You were always stubborn, but this fight isn't yours alone. You have a country now, Ibrahim. You can't risk it all for me." But Ibrahim only tightened his grip on the wound, his voice breaking. "You are my country. You are the piece of my soul that never broke when the world tried to break me. I won't let you go." Outside, the attackers regrouped, their shouts echoing through the streets. Grenades clattered against the barricade, explosions rattling the walls. Dust rained down, the building trembling. Ibrahim knew time was running out. His men looked to him, waiting for the command, fear etched into their eyes. But Ibrahim stood, rifle in hand, towering like an unshaken oak in a storm. "They want him. They'll have to go through me," he declared. The next moments blurred into a symphony of war. Bullets pierced walls, wood splintered, men screamed. Ibrahim fought like a man possessed, his every shot fueled by the fury of loyalty. His men matched his fire, their courage ignited by his refusal to surrender. And all the while, in the corner of the room, his best man lay between life and death, watching his brother fight not just for him, but for every memory they had shared. The attackers pressed harder, but they hadn't counted on Ibrahim's resolve. When ammunition ran low, he wielded his blade, striking with the precision of a warrior trained in deserts where survival was an art. His uniform was torn, his arms bleeding, but he would not yield. Each enemy that fell was a message written in blood. This bond cannot be broken. Finally, as dawn crept over the horizon, the attackers retreated. The street fell silent, the echoes of battle fading into the stillness of early morning. Ibrahim dropped his rifle, chest heaving, sweat and blood mingling on his skin. He turned to his brother, who was still breathing, weakly but alive. Relief surged through him, almost breaking him. He dropped to his knees beside him, clutching his hand. "I told you," Ibrahim whispered hoarsely, "I'd carry you through fire itself." "And I did." The man tried to laugh, but it came out as a weak cough. "You always did have a way with words." Ibrahim's men, though battered, stood around them like a wall, their loyalty sealed by what they had witnessed. They had seen their leader not as a commander distant from his men, but as a brother who would risk everything to save one of his own. It was more than leadership. It was a bond that could command armies. The sky turned golden, the sun rising on a city that had just witnessed a night of fire. Ibrahim knew the road ahead was still filled with war, with politics, with betrayal. But for now, nothing mattered except the man whose life he had wrestled back from the jaws of death. As they prepared to move him to safety, Ibrahim carried him once more, refusing to let anyone else bear the weight. And as he walked, his mind was clear. This was more than saving a friend. This was a reminder to himself, to his men, and to history that loyalty is the sharpest weapon, fiercer than any bullet, stronger than any army. For Ibrahim Traoré, the night was not just about survival. It was about proving that even in a world where power shifts like sand, some bonds are eternal, and some men will fight the entire world rather than let a brother fall. The morning after the battle carried a silence that felt heavier than the night's chaos. The streets were scarred, walls pocked with bullet holes, and the air still smelled of gunpowder. For Ibrahim Traoré, the world had shrunk to the fragile rise and fall of his brother's chest as he breathed weakly, wrapped in makeshift bandages. His men walked close, surrounding him like shadows, but it was clear to everyone who bore the heaviest weight. Ibrahim had not allowed anyone to carry him. The man who had once saved his life in Libya now lay across his arms, fragile as a wounded bird. They found shelter in an old farmhouse at the city's edge, abandoned but sturdy. Ibrahim laid him on a cot, the morning light spilling across his pale face. A medic in the unit rushed to work, stitching the wound, cleaning the blood, whispering words of grim hope. But Ibrahim never left his side. His uniform was torn, his skin bruised, yet his eyes never wavered. He sat by him, holding his hand, as if by sheer will he could keep his brother tethered to life. Memories came like waves. He remembered Libya, the desert nights when the two of them guarded Gaddafi's camps. They were young then, fire in their veins, men of purpose, though the world saw them only as soldiers in another man's war. There were nights when bombs fell so close the earth itself shook, and in those nights, his brother had always been there. He remembered once being trapped under rubble, smoke choking the air, and it was this same man who had pulled him free, carrying him through fire until his lungs gasped again. "You pulled me out then," Ibrahim whispered, his voice breaking in the quiet farmhouse. "Now it's my turn." Outside, his men kept watch. The attackers had not been mercenaries by chance. This was part of something larger, a shadow war aimed not only at Ibrahim, but at the vision he carried for his people. Enemies had grown restless, fearing the man who had risen from soldier to captain, from captain to leader. But if they thought breaking him by striking at his brother would succeed, they had underestimated him. The wounded man stirred, his eyes flickering open, pain etched deep in his features. "Still alive?" he murmured, his voice rough. Ibrahim leaned closer, his lips curling in a faint smile that hid the storm inside him. "I don't let go that easily." For Ibrahim Traore, the fight for his people would continue, battles ahead more complex than bullets and bombs. But whenever doubt threatened, he would remember the weight he carried that night, and the truth it taught him, that real strength is not in the power to command, but in the power to hold on, to a brother, to loyalty, to the promises forged in fire. And as the sun rose again on a nation struggling to define its future, Ibrahim stood ready, not just as a soldier, not just as a leader, but as a man who had proven, with blood and sacrifice, that he would never abandon those who gave their hearts beside him. His brother stood beside him once more, scarred but unbroken, and together they looked to the horizon, knowing that whatever storm came next, they would face it, not as leader and follower, but as brothers bound by eternity.